pick. And she said, you're not going to save very much time because the clusters and the leaves and the twigs. Yeah. So it had to be that between the time I spent, that I should be able to process a 5-gallon pail bowl of blueberries in a very short time. And so I developed I had a ramp, and actually eventually I had a kind of a piece of screen, and I had a fan that blew through the screen. And when you roll the blueberries at the top, you eventually got the right sort of things, that the berries that were free, they'd roll very way down to the bottom. Yeah. And there would be no twigs, no leaves, and everything. And then you found that if you tried to break the clusters up, that really doubled the amount of time you spent. So I just left the clusters, and then the blueberries that rolled to the bottom canned as blueberries, and you find that they're not very sweet. So if you made that blueberry juice into pancake syrup, you had to add a lot of honey or sugar to that. So that was the intention. Is when you drank the straight blueberry juice, it was quite sour. It wasn't sweet tasting. Well, anyway, so the clusters. It occurred to me about of the debris, half of it is blueberries, but the clusters is green berries. There's twigs and leaves. So I thought, what if I juice those in this? I don't know where my wife has it, because here I got it. The Metumea. It's got a pan full of water, and on there there's a kind of a device that sets up, and there's a cone, and there's holes where the steam comes out, and here the juice collects here, and then there's a pan full of blueberries all perforated, and you get that water. You'll extract the juice, and there's a process. Doesn't dilute that juice. The steam extracts the juice from the berries. It's not diluted in any way. And the berries literally turn white. And so here you've juiced the twigs, leaves, green berries. And then my wife says, it's not a given that the twigs and the leaves could be toxic. So I went through the literature. Look at the literature. I went through the literature with reference to any toxic nature to that family of plants. Could find no reference to that. Well, when you are canning the blueberry juice in quart sealers, the partial, what's left over at the end, the partial you just leave it for immediate consumption. Well, here was like a couple cupfuls of the berry juice, and I'm hungry. That the berries are kind of a bit sour, so I mix in some sugar, and then I pretty well consume 2 cupfuls. Oh, wow. When I go to sleep, 2 things that those berries would do that were extracted that way. One is that it seemed like it helped you fall asleep quicker, and also you began to dream. And the only time that I ever came close to that type of dreams was where any type like pie, pumpkin pie has a lot of nutmeg in it.
Okay.
Well, I could well expect that the recipe my wife used would be the cause of the intense technicolor type of dreaming, that generally it would be such that your dreaming would actually wake you up.
Wow.
And so you would be dreaming, and then you'd wake up, and it would take you a short while to realize that you're in bed. Like you're...
Is that really
well, now I realized where I had to look, and sure enough, in the psychoactive plants, blueberries are one of the most psychoactive plants we have in our environment. It doesn't take very much blueberry tea for students. So here I got the guinea pigs again. And when I would say, the blueberry, here's a beautiful patch of blueberries, here, and so everybody boils up the tea. And anybody who made us, participated in that acknowledged, yeah. The dreaming was, so I said, where you find the literature is the dream quest of the Aboriginal people. They go through this process trying to dream what the future holds for them. And one of the things that participates in that is drinking strong teas out of various things. Well, if you have fireweed tea and blueberry tea, which again, knowing that, we experimented with that. It's like blow the top of your head off. The unique sort of things where I come from is I had the privilege of being a person that was being paid for something that everybody else has to pay for, and that I have access. So I've got 30 university students for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And with that manpower and with a lot of things, you have the opportunity to say, oh, an element of a university education is you have to learn something new, and you have to consolidate information to separate the chaff from the berry, and on and on. So there was I could write a small book on that phenomenon where you got 30 university students, and you say that the most euphoric tea that we call happy, the happy plant, the bunchberry, that we were able to verify the fact of how it would play a role in the Aboriginal situation with regard to what it does for you. So, anyway, it's the Prozac of the wilderness, and you've got 30 people that have, and usually you have a couple of people out of 30 who are in that mindset of being what I call they're very interested in that sort of thing, and then they discover that they can incorporate that interest, that they can use it as part of their education, and kill birds with a stone, and so on. So these people will come on the scene that are way more versed in the issue of psychoactives than I would ever be. But yet they bring that in, and then they say, oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay. Because the definitions have already been taken care of with these hopheads. Kill them hopheads. Like, you find that a certain people, they come to realize that they are so crazy about that sort of stuff that can be very, very easily create problems, because they come back to camp and say, oh, we took this ultra-red class. We learned how to get stoned. You hardly believe you can take an ultra-red class and learn the plans to get stoned. Well, the term stoned goes back further. Stone yarn. What are you running out there?
I suppose that opened a big can of worms for you.
Well, so you have to counsel people and say, look, if you make an issue like that you realize how you might jeopardize this sort of process.
Mm-hmm. So
you got to tone it down, and you sort of got to say what you learned here. Sort of treat it as a trade secret. Let's not create the impression. It's like there's a program on a Knowledge Channel on bees, and the problem of bees are being decimated,
mm-hmm.
and how much we depend on the pollination, because without pollination, no fruit. And we have learned to appreciate all that. Now the bees are being killed off through pesticides and on and on. So anyway, so people say, yeah, we have to grow way more. Any opportunity you got, grow the plants that bees appreciate. And then even in the city, in New York, it was illegal for you to raise the hives, within the city, because people say, well, if we have encouraged hives within the city, people get stung to death. And then the people who sort of came up with this issue that we have to do more to help, they had the law removed, because they proved that type of a stupid law didn't do the bees any good, and it eliminated a certain valuable process between the pollination of the bees and the honey that you would get from, on the rooftops of New York buildings in New York City, that would help the bees survive that much better. And there was a law that it was illegal for you to raise bees within the city limits.
They have some outrageous laws in the U.S. that prevent people from doing a lot of different things, and I'm glad we don't have those laws in place here in Canada. So, Moores, we're coming around 2 hours here. Is there anything that you want to get out? Any literature that you're excited that you're going to release soon? Or tell people what you're up to?
Well, the big problem with me all my career was that I was never driven by hunger. So if I was driven by hunger, I would have to hustle and make more money.
Mm-hmm.
So with the setup that I ended up, let's say, the issue of how much income you have if you have enough income to be able to do all the things, like for example, you wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning and you're saying to yourself, how can this be? When I was a young working employable person, how can I get away with this? And then I realized that my choice wasn't becoming a millionaire. My choice was to become what you would imagine a millionaire should enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So that you,
and I agree with you. Right?
So you earn enough. If you earn enough money that you're never hungry, and you got a roof over your head, and then you can be as lazy as you want to be, and you can still get away with it. I think that's what happened with me. So by the time I wrote initially for many years the one book, which is like, the issue is, I published a book that was extremely popular, and eventually my royalties got to be about $100, $10,000 a year. That's when my publisher folds, so my publisher continues to sell my book, but I haven't gotten any royalties for 4 years. So in a week is going to be when I would get my royalty check.
Yep.
So in a week I'll have written a letter and say to my publisher, I say, what is the use that I'm allowing you to print my book, which I see all the time? And I can appreciate that the internet has really thrown a monkey wrench into the publishing field. But still, to go for 4 years now without any royalties, you now owe me $40,000.
Well, if anybody's listening to this has got some law background and want to get this sorted out for more.
Well, anyway, what can you do if they can afford to bring out a new edition, but they can't afford to make enough money to compensate you as an author? And it's not just me. They've done that to all their authors somehow, that they stop paying royalties. And it was like the stink, 6 years ago, and they sort of caught up. So without raising a stink, begging them to pay you, they're sort of they're waiting for you. So I'm writing a letter, which is going to be, hopefully that letter, that when they read it, they'll say, holy mackerel, maybe we'll have to work a little harder to make sure that it doesn't get out into the common knowledge about their techniques, because they should have told me, 4 years ago and say, sorry, we can't pay you any royalties, but will you allow us to continue publishing for that? And what could we do? Well, I had all kinds of ideas about doubling the price of the book and bringing out with a form that should have been the first time, the type of where it was 1/3 color pictures, 1/3 line drawings, and 1/3 text. That would have been a classical book that would have been so popular for the next 5 years. They didn't want to listen to me because they would say, "Oh, you're an outdoor camper. What have you got to learn to this whole issue?" And
little they know that book and you yourself has impacted tens of thousands of people around the world.
Well, it's no small reason that it turned out to be popular, but I made the mistake that the editors, I should have had them come and visit me. And then they would say, "Oh, this guy's got more than one book." Yeah,
for those that can't see, we're in Moore's house, and
well, he lives in a library.
He lives literally in a library, and there's no reason why. There's no doubt why he's as smart as he is and has the information stowed away in his mind.
Well, people ask me how many books I have. I think I can make up a case, $250,000. It sounds better than 250,000.
Yeah, well, $250,000, and it's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, so. There is a lot of books, and because the era that I came on the scene, it ended up that bookstores flourished for a while. So bookstores, the price is a fraction of the new cover price, and then the phenomenon of Goodwill and Value Village and those type of thrift stores, books now became, and now there is a phenomenon here in Edson that is called Take It or Leave It. Mm-hmm. And a greater part of the floor space is taken up by books. And, I'm just flabbergasted. There's a used bookstore in Edson, and the people don't stop first with their boxes of books at the used bookstore. And the used book person says, maybe 1 in 10. And the rest goes to the Take It or Leave It. No, they go straight to the Take It or Leave It.